What is your understanding on the concept of user story as applied in Agile, and why is it important? This is a very important question that it asks to evaluate if you understand how to guide the team to implement the work that they need to implement in an Agile environment. Now, you need to understand that a user story is the implementation guide for every Agile project because of incremental delivery. But I'm going to break it down for you in this video. Number one, I'm going to show you a framework how you can situate where a user story actually align in the whole process. Number two, I'm going to discuss what is the format for writing a good user story and how you can explain it to your team. Number three, I'm going to explain the invest criteria as applied in a user story. And finally, I will also explain the 3 C's that qualifies a good user story. So without wasting much time, welcome to the Scrum chat room with Dr. Francis Mbunya. If you're new here, remember to click the subscribe button because we are dedicated to giving you practical knowledge you will not find anywhere in any book, right? Trust me, we make it easy for you. And if you're a returning subscriber, you want to do me 3 favors. Number one, you want to like. Number two, you want to actually drop a comment. Number three, you want to share. When you do this, it actually help us and encourage us to come back and do the video because we know that this is useful for you, especially now that I'm committed to doing 3 videos a week. It's a whole lot of work, but I'm doing it because I know that it actually helping you. And if for any reason you want me to talk about specific aspect, drop it in the comment. I'm going to pay attention to that. Trust me, I'll pay attention to that this time around. And I'll actually pick out this question and answer them in subsequent videos. And if I have too many questions to answer, I might even do multiple videos in a week. All right, without wasting much time, let's get down into our concept. Now, to make it a bit more easier, I'm going to more or less visualize the concept. I'm going to share my screen so that while I'm explaining, you can actually follow along with me. Now, this is like a foundation for every Scrum Master or project leader. If you don't understand the concept of a user story, it becomes very difficult for you to even guide your team. Now, what is user story? User story, it's the smallest unit on how we explain what the customer wants, right? So if I can kind of quickly pick my pen right here and show you right here. So we see right here, we have stories and we have tags. I'm going to explain what's the difference between story and tag because this is also where we have like a confusion. Now, in most of the companies, this is not this is the simplest structure. We have the initiative. Initiative might be like what the customer want. What is the bigger solution that we want? Now we break that bigger solution into different parts, which are called epics. Epic simply means this is going to take longer period for us to execute it. In most of the cases, epics are broken down into story or into tags, right? Epics are breaking down into story or into tags. A lot of people actually think that a tag should be like a sub under a story. No, a tag and a story is at the same level, right? What comes under a story or a tag is a subtax, right? It's a subtax. Now, what is the difference between a story and a tag, right? A story has a format. A story, it's a requirement. It's a functionality that a customer wants. It comes with a benefit. And that is why we're going to see a structure of a user story in the next format. A tax doesn't really come as a benefit, but it's something we do in order to add to the benefit, right? It's a standalone aspect. For instance, if I tell you that, okay, I want you to update the username fee, I want you to update the username fee, or I want you to add in such a way that the username must be 8 character, right? That is a task I want you to do. Now, why is it not a user story? A user story would not just be add a role so that every username should be 8 character. A user story will be the whole component, the whole unit, right? As a user, I want a username, which is 8 characters, so that I will be XYZ. Now, we have already built that story, but something is missing, right? Something is missing. It has been built. I just ask you, go update to ensure that this. So that's a task I'm giving you. But if you want to build it from scratch, that is where we call a story. All right. Then tags, when we have a story, we can actually break it into subtags, right? So tags can also have subtags. Okay. So if we go to the concept of a user story, it's very simple, straight to the point. Right. A user story is the smallest unit or functionality of a desired output. Now, I did show you in the previous slide that it's part of a big output. I'm going to give you an example, right? If I say, build me a house, right? That is what we call an initiative. Build me a house. Now we are going to break that house into what? Into different rooms, into the living room, into the bedroom, into the bathroom, and all of that. These are like epics. Now, these are like bigger components, but they are part of the initiative. Now, when we go into the bathroom, we start thinking about what is going to be the composition of the bathroom. You realize it's a smaller unit, right? We can talk about the sink. It's a smaller unit. But why do we need a sink? We're looking at that as a story. We need a sink so that every time someone uses the bathroom, they wash their hands and they don't they don't get sick from the contamination of or from infection of what. There's a business value there. But then when we have the sink, we can actually have what? We break it down into subtags. The sink, we have what? We have you putting maybe the bowl, putting the drainer, putting the tap and all of that, right? So now let's assume that we have completed this sink, right? And I come as the user and I don't really like it, right? Or I like it, but I think it's going to be more beautiful if you add some blending and color there. So I can give you a tag. Can you add a blue blending color on the sink? Now, this is a tag. This is no longer stuff. Now, in order for you to add that blue blending color, you might need to, number one, maybe wrap the area that will not need blue. Number two, you might need to maybe sandpaper it. And then number three, you might now need to spray it. So you realize you can see have subtags on the tags. All right. So without understanding, we now understand that a user story must have three components. A user story must have three components. What is the role of the user? For instance, if I'm building, let's say, if I'm building the washroom, or if I'm building a restroom for my home use versus I'm building a restroom for public use, all of them are restroom, but because the user is different, because who is using it is different, it's going to have different requirements. If I'm building a restroom solely for children, it's also going to have its own different requirement. So the who is very important, which is what? The user. Who is using it is very important. Now, there are three components of a user story. Now, the second part is what? Why would I need it? Now, I'm building a washroom for children so that they can easily access the toilet pot. In that way, I'm looking at children. I'm not going to build toilet pots that are very high. I'm definitely going to build toilet pot based on the ages of the children, right? So what is the benefit? A benefit simply means, why do I need to build them like low, not standard stuff, so that they can easily get on aid and maybe do not have to mess their hand around, so that they don't get sick, so that they can easily access it and sit comfortably with it. So for every project, this is what helps us to know that we're doing the right thing. Who is using it? What do they need it for? And why should we make it that way? Okay, so we understand the user story. But if it's about a task will not be written in this format because the work has already been done. We already built the WC. Now we're just like, okay, can you add a footstool on the in the restroom? Now it's a task. So we've already known what is what. So if I say, can you add the footstool? You will now add a footstool because a story has been built or a story has been formulated. The footstool will now, you will not ask me what's going to be the length of the footstool and all of that, because it's already qualified by the user story that this is for children, right? So now, what actually helps us to confirm if we have done the work or not is acceptance criteria. So a good user story must have what? The 3 W's, the who, the what, and the why, and it should have acceptance criteria. What acceptance criteria? If I say build a washroom or build a restroom for children, I need to be able to put criteria. The toilet seat should be 2x4. It should be white in color. It should have a sink that we can wash the hands. It should be this height and other stuff. So acceptance criteria simply means this is what I'm going to see for me to validate if you have done the work. And an acceptance criteria, it's also validated by what we call the 3C, right? What are the 3Cs? 3C simply help us to validate if we understand exactly what needs to be done and we can confirm that it's done. Number one, it should be small enough to fit in a cart, which means I can read. I want you to do A, B, C, D. I can see in the cart, and we can have a conversation over it. Now, if I write two pages of what I want you to do, it's going to be very difficult for us to have a conversation about it. I will need to do a whole full presentation for you to grab it. But now, since I put it in a very small cart, what happened? We can either, do you want it to be, I see that you want 3-pot in the largest height of this. Would you also mind about the size? What about this? I can ask this question so that it helps now the user to confirm that, yes, this is what I wanted and this is what I have gotten. Okay. So the last part of the user story, which is very important, is what we call the invest criteria. Now, the invest criteria is a guide that helps us to evaluate if a story is good enough and meet the quality. Number one, every story should be independent. We can independently validate and test it, right? We can negotiate the scope of the story, right? It should add value to the user. We can estimate how long we need to use it, right? And we can estimate how long are we going to use it. It should be small enough to fit within an iteration or a sprint. And we can actually test it to see if it's done or not. Now, those are the key concepts when you're talking about user story. And I know that you got this, right? So if you've been asked in an interview, what is your understanding of a user story as applied in an Agile framework? Your response should be, a user story is the smallest functionality that describes what the user wants in the user language. And it should include 3 components. Number one, who is making the request, what for, and why are they making the request. And for a user story to actually add the value that it needs to have what? Acceptance criteria. And the acceptance criteria are qualified by the 3 C's, right? Which is card conversation and confirmation that help us to evaluate. And for us to actually know that we have a good user story, we apply the invest criteria. Now, that was too complicated for you. Now, this is what you should actually say, all right, in an interview. Trust me, use this one, you will never go wrong. Now, a user story is the smallest functionality that describes exactly what the user wants in the user voice, right? So it should be qualified by who want it, because who want it is going to affect what they want, what do they need it for, and then the business value, which is why they want it. When we have all of this in place, then we know that, okay, we understand what the user needs. And of course, the acceptance criteria that we can evaluate and confirm that the user actually needs it. Simple as that. All right. If this actually benefited you, do not forget to share. Do not forget to comment. Do not forget to like. And for those who want to be mentored directly by me, by the Brother Agility Institute, trust me, it's a whole awesome community with great people you're going to love. And if you're looking to build a career, then you want to check us out. We definitely not like your usual community. I know many of you have been here, there, but if you definitely want to invest your energy where you get the result, check rather Agility Institute. We have like sessions from Monday through Saturday. We have project groups, Scrum group running every day. So it's not about someone that is kind of still thinking if this is for me. It's for someone that has made up their mind that, you know what, I want this or I want this. And then you're looking for where you're going to have the value, then you can check us out. But if you're still trying to think and evaluate, YouTube videos are good for you, right? I'll see you in the other video. Do have a great rest of the week.